Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha, and welcome back to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast. Today we go over the Packers Week 14, Week 14 match. It's another Thursday night game, but this time the Packers are, despite it being a Thursday night game, they're playing on quote unquote standard break between the games because they played on Thanksgiving last week. So the team was able to pack in a shifted standard week of practice, but we'll see how they're ready to go. We have, this one's a big one because while the division is, I think they're only got like a 5% chance of winning the division. You've got to win this game to have any sort of realistic shot. So, Joe, with table set that way, how are you feeling tonight?
I was just sitting here thinking how the season is almost done, and I can't believe it's that late. And I was just talking to the guy at work that there's no Hawkeye game this weekend, so the college season is pretty much done. The I mean, you'll have the playoff runs and stuff like that, but we're on week 14, so there's only 4 more games after that, not including the playoffs. So it's amazing how this is flying by. But it it's Detroit. I think this game should have been the last week game. Might as well just have made it the Thanksgiving game and called it good. But it is what it is. Both teams are coming off wins. Packers is a little bit bigger win than what Detroit's was, but you got to wonder if Detroit has peaked too soon because they barely pulled it out against the Bears this last week. So, yeah, you got to wonder if they're starting to kind of come back to earth a little bit. And I was looking at the injury report, which we'll get into a little bit, and it's not as bad as it seemed like it was going to be after watching that Lions game, because it seemed like every other minute another person was going out of the game because of an injury. So it's not as extensive as you would think, but it's still got some names on there.
Yeah, so, I mean, we'll just start off the bat with that. The Packers, Alexander, 2 starters, and one more almost starter is Edge Cooper, who's out this week. And then special teams ace Corey Ballantyne is out as well. I do think that for the team, it's the right move to just get Jair as right as he's going to be. I know there's some consternation because he was a limited, and then today he was a DNP, but I do think if you read into what LaFleur was saying in yesterday's press conference, I know we don't take too much at face value, but he was saying that they're comparing his practice film and they're taking looks to see like how he's moving around and stuff. So I do think this is all part of the process, and I don't believe there was a setback. I think this is just a matter of, okay, let's see how he's moving. Let's see how he's moving. Is he favoring it? Is he, is he overcompensating for it? Yes, no, and the big tell will be if he practices next week Wednesday. I was hoping we were going to have good news about Dobbs this week, but honestly, it's one of those you just can't rush a concussion. You know, just for a point of reference, none of these are alike, but Quay did miss a game earlier this season with a concussion, and then he was back the following Sunday. But just to keep track of that, he didn't pass protocol for the first game after the concussion, and then the next game was the following Sunday. So by that track, Dobbs, hypothetically, if he was on the same track, he would have made it if this game was on Sunday. Kind of fell, and there was probably some whiplash involved and stuff. So you hope he's okay. He comes out the other side of this thing all right. And then Valentine, I guess it's good that he's not on IR. Hopefully, it's just a hyperextension of his knee, and they're just kind of taking it week to week with his injury. And then Cooper, no real update until he starts to practice on it. Rookie's not going to go without any practice during the week. So that's the status for the Packers. And then for the Lions, the one that everyone's pointing at is Taylor Decker is out, but honestly, the ones that I'm looking more at are the defensive losses for the Lions, which are Levi Omuzurike, Josh Pascal, and oh shoot, of course now I'm blanking on the last one.
Jay Reader.
Yeah, DJ Reader. So basically, the tweet I saw is that the the Lions are down to one of their projected Week One starters on their D line, and that is Alim Alim McNeil. Shoot, I'm getting all these names back. But suffice it to say, so they're four down linemen. Only one of their projected starters is playing this week. And so where that gets in for the Packers is run the ball. And we talked about this before the first matchup. You want to meet their physicality, and Pascal is one of their starting. Reader is one of the defensive tackles. McNeil is the other starting defensive tackle, and then old friend Zadarius Smith is the other end. So, in all honesty, run it at Zadarius. We know how that worked when he was with the Packers. Do the same thing back to him now that he's on the Lions. Detroit brought him in to juice their pass rush, but take his legs. I'm not saying that in a dirty manner, but lean on him, pound on him in the run game, take the juice out of his legs. He's in his mid 30s now at this point, so make him play the run, and yeah, just take away his stamina and just attack this Lions defense. And I'm sure that they're gonna do something similar to what they did in the Thanksgiving game last year, where the first play was a shot to Christian Watson, but I'm hoping this is a game where you just run this ball at them 40, 50 times on tomorrow night or tonight when you're listening to this. But yeah, any objecting thoughts for you, Joe?
Well, there's a couple other concerns Packer wise. Josh Jacobs is listed with a calf and he was limited. So you got to hope that he's going to be all right. Then the rest of them pretty much are the normal ones that have been on there for a while. But the one that's kind of weird for me is they have Aaron Mosby listed and it says game day concussion protocol evaluation. And then he was a full participant Monday, and then he didn't practice Tuesday or Wednesday. So I mean, I get it. He's not like this big name player, but with the way that they kind of run their rotation with the defensive ends, it kind of hurts not having him, especially since he has shown some burst when given the opportunity to be out there. But I just thought it was weird that it has him listed as game day concussion protocol evaluation. So at some point he also got concussed. But I think this is I know you said that you would like to see him run, but I think this is a game you're gonna have to be balanced with. Because not only are they looking injured on the defensive line front, but they've got two of their defensive backs listed as on the injury report with knee and hamstring issues. So they're also not healthy there. So I think you got to have a good balance of, all right, run it when we need to, then make sure we hit the throws when we have to. And it just, I don't know. You got to think that some other guys are kind of banged up, just like I said, because it seemed like every other second they were going out with injury during the Thanksgiving game against the Bears. So you got to think there's some of them that aren't even listed on here that maybe they're not needing an injury declaration, but they are not 100%.
Yeah. So, and obviously, I'm not saying just only run the ball, but just try to. Lafleur always wants to control the pace of the game and you know control the amount of possessions, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, especially with Jordan Love healthier, able to play more from under center, expecting to see this run game activated a little more and hopefully a bit more play action looks and stuff like that. So just more variety to the offense. But one thing I wanted to pick your brain on was I can't remember if I heard it or I read it somewhere, but the, I think it was LaFleur. He noted that the Packers have gotten into this mindset that if they win the toss, they're going to take the ball in the first half, and it's a way to like try to score and stuff. And I wanted to know what you thought of that, where most of the league goes to defer and you set the tone with your defense and stuff like that. But how do you like Lafleur's newfound aggression in terms of trying to take the ball first when it's if he wins the toss?
I'll be honest with you, I'm used to it because that's exactly what Kirk Ferentz started doing with Iowa for the longest time, was that he wanted to get his offense out there and have them set the tone for the game, which obviously the last few years it didn't work. But if that's what they've got to do to get a jolt out of, and maybe that's the spark the defense needs, is to see the offense go out there and you know push the field, and that'll boost the morale a little bit for the defense. I mean, I understand the game it is that you defer, that way you can have it in the second half, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, in all honesty, it doesn't really matter one way or the other. You're going to get the ball to start or you're not going to get it to start. And the only time it really matters is if who has the last possession of the half. And but in my mind, I don't even, it doesn't even matter to me who does what with the kickoff. It's got to the point where nobody's kicking to Keyshawn Nixon anyway, so what's the point of them taking it first or taking it in the second half?
Yeah, if anything, just don't go three and out or don't turn the ball over. As long as you don't do that, you're fine. So, yeah.
Right,
Uh,
but then on the other end of it, you don't want your defense to go out there and give up a first possession touchdown either. So I mean, it's a that's why I said it doesn't matter either way, because it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type thing. That okay, well, the offense is going to go out there. There's what, four or five outcomes that could happen: interception, touchdown, turnover on downs, fumble, whatever. Or on the other side, it's cause them a three and out, get an interception right off the bat, fumble on that side, or you give up the touchdown. So, like I said, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's. I think I would prefer it against Detroit, just to try to get in there and set the tone, get a long drive out there, get some points off the first drive, cause that defense to wear down, make the offense sit a while, but it's not going to buy. I know that's probably not the answer that you really want out of it, but kickoffs anymore really don't matter.
no, honestly, more just trying to see how you felt about it. Yeah, like I said, my main thing is just don't have any bone brain mistakes either way. That's just the. I know that sounds like a cop out answer, but really, whatever, whichever way you go, like you said, it doesn't really matter because yeah, if you just get dog walked on defense, like you're down 7-0 kind of thing. So that side of it doesn't work out either. So yeah, I mean, I at least appreciate that Lafleur is going into it with like, the way he's looking at it is like, yes, Cobra Kai strike first, no mercy kind of thing and stuff. So I'll take it. But yeah, I mean, if you can get Love going by taking the ball first, all that kind of stuff, establish your run game, so be it. But don't squander red zone chances. They've done better the past couple of weeks in terms of especially after they came out just so boneheaded against the Bears of all teams, and Love had the overthrow, and then they turned it over on downs in the red zone. It's been really nice the past 2 weeks that they've been converting a lot better in the red zone opportunities. So you want to see that continue against this Lions team, especially like you said, with them having either just guys flat out missing from their defensive line position or guys who are playing hobbled or injured, in the back end. So got to take advantage there. And then defensively, you want our two boy, our two pet projects, Quay and Lucas, to continue their upswing, Quay's newfound style of play, and Lucas's, just the confidence that he had, because their success does sort of mimic how the team is doing. If Quay is playing well, that means the middle of your defense is more solidified, and if Lucas is playing well, that generally means that the rest of your pass rush is playing up as well. So you want to see those two continue to have success, but let's hopefully this our front can take advantage of a hobbled offensive line for the Lions. Yeah, Goff has had a strong season again, but even though it's not out in the elements, we know how he handles pressure. He doesn't handle pressure very well historically. So, it was good to see Kenny have his first sack of the season last week. Rashawn is heating up. Lucas looks to have turned a literal corner. And hopefully Devontae, being another week removed from his injury, is just, back to the form he was earlier in the season, especially that interior pressure. If you can get that interior pressure, that really screws up Goff's how well he plays as a quarterback. So just want to see if the team can take advantage of that, and like I said, get pressure on him, because he does not stand up well to that when opportunities have been available, provided for him. So yeah, let's see where the Packers can go with this one.
And really, this is as close in rankings as you're going to get between two teams. Because just looking off team rankings, points scored per game, Packers are eighth, Detroit's first. Points allowed per game, Packers are ninth, Detroit's second. Takeaway differential, Packers are sixth, Detroit's seventh. Pass yards per game, Packers are eighth, Detroit's fifth. Rush yards, fifth for Packers, Detroit's fourth. Then defensive pass yards per game, Packers are 17th and Detroit's 25th. And defensive rushing yards per game, Packers are 8th, Detroit's 5th. So, I mean, this is going to be an extremely tight game. I know we talked about this the last time, a couple weeks ago when they played in Green Bay, that you wonder if the reason why the Detroit's passing yards per game allowed is higher is just because of the junk time. But then you got to take advantage of it. Just that's why I said I know you wanted to see him run a little bit more, but I think seeing those stats and seeing those rankings, I might push the envelope a little bit. Of course, you do want to feed Jacobs, you do want to feed those guys, but let's get a little cutesy with things. Let's draw up some plays. Let's dig into the old playbook, and let's see a flea flicker or a Statue of Liberty type play, or hell, the annexation of Puerto Rico. For those of you who are old enough to know,
That's sad that you have to put it in that term.
it's this is off topic, but what's so funny and the reason why it brought to my mind is I was kind of scrolling through TikTok, and one of the clips from that movie popped on, and it was when the one of the uh, cowboys was picking on the little kid in the middle of the game, and the little guy's like, "Don't you be talking about my mama." And so yeah, it brought it to my mind, but whatever. Anyway, back to the point, that's why I said you really gotta get kind of cutesy with it. This is the type of game where you go into it and you take those plays that you saved from earlier in the season and you start bringing those out. The ones that you didn't want to run because you didn't want to put it on film yet. This is the time to start using it, because that's the type of opponent that you're kind of facing right now. So again, with the way Detroit's kind of played after last week, is this kind of their spiral? We've hit their peak. Now they're kind of coming back down to earth. Who knows? But if it is, then you've really got to, to use the metaphor, you really got to step on the throat for that, or step on the throat and really put the pressure on them. But let's hope the pass rush steps up like it did last week against the Dolphins, and that'll set the tone for everything. If the Packers can come out of this game with another 5-sack game, then there's no doubt that they could win this game.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like you said, I don't even know if peaking is the right word, but I do think, one of the commendable parts of what Campbell has brought to them, is the edge that he has them play with in terms of they're always, every down is they treat every down like it's the last, and they play with hyper intensity all the time and stuff. And are they meeting their physical load, so to speak? And is that toll are you seeing the result of that toll being taken on them? So yeah, we'll see what happens with that side of it. Are we on the backside of the crest of the wave and all the all those sorts of epithets and stuff? So um I don't have
But we
much
know
more
it's
to say.
Toyotathon season, so we know Jordan Love's gonna just rake from here on out. So we got to hope
Absolutely.
that the tide is kind of coming down for the Lions.
I mean, we've joked about it all season, but holy shit, like, will one of these two teams in front of us lose while we keep winning? So it's it's about that time where you really hope, like, come on, guys, like, we're, like I said, most importantly, the Packers have to take care of their business this week, go win this game, whatever means necessary. Obviously, you don't want any more injuries, but kind of to the point you were making too about, like, things that, unscouted looks and things that, LaFleur's kept in his back pocket. I do feel like there's a bunch that he didn't get to use in the first matchup, whether because of how the game went or because of Love's injury, that handicapped his ability to call certain plays because Love, at the time was not just dealing with the knee, but also the groin injury. So he was, double compromised in a sense. So, the past 2-3 weeks, we've seen him play a lot more from under center, a lot more hard play action looks and stuff. So I do wonder if, that different look really positively affects Green Bay's output. And yeah, just most importantly, just play a clean, good game if you're the Packers, and just put your best foot forward. Like that's at the end of the day, that's why they lost the first two games again. The division games against the Lions and the Vikings. They just made way too many mental mistakes, too many physical mistakes, but really the mental ones, the drops, the bad throws, the brain fart interceptions, all, put it all in a bag, and they did them all the first time around. So, you know, not I don't really like to play the, like, if you just don't make this mistake, but realistically, like, if Love doesn't throw that pick six, it's, only a 3 point or a 4 point game going into the half or whatever. And if you don't do a couple other things, maybe it's a one score game and stuff. So, you know, just play a clean game. And like you said, some people are saying, like, oh, it's unfortunate that Detroit's injured. Like, Love was injured the first time these two teams played. Jair still isn't playing. It's not like we're not missing players too this time around. So, the only people who are going to feel sorry about it either way are fans of the team that are, missing guys. So it is what it is. Just go win the damn game and, get to double digit wins. That should be the marching cry this week is, that's an accomplishment for Love. I know that technically two and a half of them aren't really to his name because he didn't start the games, but still, like, if you win this week, you're in position to get to double digit wins yourself if you're Jordan. It's not an individual game, but that stuff means something for a young quarterback and stuff to say, like, yeah, you led a team to double digit wins, contended for the division after a rough start to the season, yada yada yada. So just keep swinging, keep, and to take a line out of Campbell's own, his own vernacular, go bite some kneecaps. God damn it. Like, they're, like I said, you're not 100% healthy either, but the Lions are, they're hurting at the lines of scrimmage. So take a bat to them and beat them over the head first, because they'll do that to you if you don't do it. So strike first, no mercy. So within the rules, though, obviously. But Joe, I turn it over to you. Over unders for tomorrow or tonight.
Is outside the norm of what I normally do. It is going to involve Josh Jacobs, but I'm going to go over under 40 and a half receiving yards.
I am going to go. I'm going to go under just slightly, just because
I'm,
I think you have the receivers to like. Cause that's the thing is their secondary is not that good. It's all based on the pressure they create up front. That's why.
well, see, I'm going to go the opposite way that I'm going to go over, but and the reason is I think because now everybody's getting a little bit more comfortable in with each other and in the system. Josh has been getting a lot more involved in the passing game, and I could see another one like last week where it was a dump off to him and he takes it for, what was it, 30 some yards or 40 some yards. And so I can see him doing that and getting a couple dump offs again on it. So I'm going to go over on that one.
I do wonder if they run that rollout throwback screen to Jacobs ever, like the one that they ran to Jones a couple times last year. So it'll be interesting to see if they utilize that. But yeah, definitely could see it happening.
Let's do an old standby and go over and under 2.5 sacks for the Packers defense.
I'm gonna go over. I think you combine the fact that Decker is out along with how that group rushed Goff last year inside the dome. I think the turf and conditions play up for the Packers actually in a weird way.
I'm sitting here trying to think of it. I'm looking over through all the stats. I want to say over, but I also got to. Here's where I'm thinking. I think there's going to be a ton of hits. I think there's going to be a ton of pressures. But I'm wondering if that holds back the sacks because, like right now, QB hits. Rashawn's got 11. Devontae Wyatt's got 6. Enigbare's got 5. Van Ness, Cooper, Nixon, so on. All they have 4. And then tackles for loss. Quay's got 8. Wilson's got 7. Wyatt's got 6. Van Ness has got 6. So they're getting in the backfield. I'm hoping that it will translate, but this line's offensive line, even without Decker, is one of the best offensive lines in football. I'm going to go over, but I think there's going to be a ton of. My head is going to say over just because I'm hoping, I'm thinking that they kind of turned the corner last week and we'll get the pass rush will really start coming in. But my gut tells me there's going to be a lot of close calls, but they're not going to get home, but they are going to cause disruptions.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I'll do one more, but I'm flip flopping here. I don't want to do the interception one because that's kind of played out at the moment. Well, let's do Jordan Love over under 2.5 passing TDs.
Let's go over. Screw it. Go big or go home.
That's what I'm thinking, and it's more hope than anything for it. But I gotta think that they'll start. They'll just LaFleur's having a hell of a year playing play calling. That's just plain and simple. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can sit here and look at and like, well, what the hell was he thinking here? Or I've heard some guys calling out like, okay, why are we doing the 2nd and 10 run when we need to get some chunk yardages here and shit like that? But I gotta think that with the division, like you've kind of pushed, the division is pretty much on the line right now. Each and every week, you can't hold back anymore. You've just got to give everything out there. I'm going to go over just because I'm hoping it happens.
Yeah, and like I said, also going hand in hand with that is Love is healthy, and because of his health, Lafleur is able to use more of the playbook. And that includes a lot of the play action, the movement throws, all that kind of stuff. So all that sort of improvement, just helps the Packers, that helps their offense overall. And also more passing touchdowns, more sacks on defense. So hand in hand, here we go. But all right, so that's over under. Anything for your favorite segment this week? Nah, it's been
No,
quiet. Yeah.
it's been quiet, and I've said this before. I haven't been over on the Elon machine, so I haven't really been able to see the bad takes over there at the moment. There are some things I could probably call out, but it might be
One of the dogs farted.
there's some things I could call out, but I think I'll save it.
Good deals. Yeah, like I honestly think we haven't seen most of the outlandish stuff because I think the outlandish stuff is being used on everyone's just being so like just I don't even know what the right term is, but just like despondent because of how like Minnesota and the Lions seem to be infallible despite how bad they play versus how good their opponent plays for 80-90% of the game, and then they just snatch victory from the jaws of defeat every time, or their opponent does the opposite. So I know it's just so irritating, honestly, because you're kind of like, okay, like they're down and out, and like there they are, still with only 1 and 2 losses on the season. So, like I said, that's
Well,
why.
the only thing that I heard today, and I really haven't been able to keep up with a lot of podcasts and takes and that at the moment, was I was watching the Freezer podcast with, friends of show Sanjay and friend Matt. And one of their topics of conversation was possibly trading Jair in the offseason. And I that to me is kind of a bad take at the moment. And yeah, so I could easily call that one out and do a moment on that, but we'll keep with the positive vibes for right now.
Yeah, all I'll say on the Jair stuff is I'm like, it goes into the whole like, okay, you're trying to. I get it. It sucks that Jair's been so banged up the past few years. I do hate the like, oh, you paid another guy you paid and now he does shit kind of thing. I'm to grow the fuck up, get over yourselves. Like, it's a freak injury, and like I said, you feel however you want, but I know you and I are choosing to feel fortunate that that this season is even in the possibility of a return, as opposed to the people just choosing to be so despondently negative and pessimistic about it. Like, he didn't choose to misstep and hurt his knee out there. Like, it's not like he got, it's not the same pulled muscle. That's the thing with Jair, is like all his injuries are different, which, some people will
And they're
hate that.
random.
Yeah, but it's like you get the shoulder one from getting run the fuck over by Najee Harris in 2021. You get he dealt with some minor things in 2022. Last year he was dealing with some soft tissue injuries and stuff, and this year he did a little bit as well, but they weren't the same ones from last year. And then it culminates in the knee injury he suffered at Jacksonville. But you know, my whole thing with cutting him or trading him is like, okay, but are you definitely getting as good player? Like, that's the whole thing. And everyone's like,
Well,
oh, you're gonna draft the
who do you replace him with?
yeah. And I do agree with the ones that are like, Groot should have done more at corner this offseason. And at the same time, he did fix a bunch of other spots. So it's like, he had to completely remake the safety room. He had to invest at linebacker, you know, just and then continued to invest in the O line, and he shifted around the running back room. So it's like you can only change so many seats on the deck chairs in one off season. You can't just this isn't the NBA where you can just wipe your whole roster clean every off season if you wanted to, kind of thing. So
Well, now see, we might as well get into it because we're already talking about it. So to me, it's a shut the fuck up moment just because it's, for one, who are you going to replace him with? And they were kind of talking about it on the show before the whole trade thing came up. Was, it's one of the harder positions to develop in the NFL is cornerback. So it's not like you can just go out and draft a guy and there's your replacement. So if you trade Jair, who are you replacing him with? Stokes is most likely, if he's back, it's on a cheapish contract. Nixon is going to Nixon. He's not a number one corner at all. Valentine is kind of going through his sophomore slump right now. There's nobody on roster you can say that's my guy to replace him with. Now they do have some money. They do have the ability to go out and sign somebody in free agency. And I just lost Mike, so he'll be back in a minute. I think one of the names was like Asante Samuel Jr. or something. That's great if you can get him, but it's just because he's a potential free agent doesn't mean you can go out and sign him, just because over the cap or sport track says that they're a potential free agent next year doesn't mean they're signable, because one, a lot of teams will show loyalty to the team that drafted them. Two, if they don't, then they're going to go for the max money that they can get out of a contract. So that kind of hurts the Packers in the way, because if you trade Jair, you still got some dead money that's going to be sitting on the table, and then you're going to go give this huge ass contract to an incoming free agent that could end up playing worse than Jair or missing more games than Jair. So, it's a 50-50 shot with that. And then if you draft a guy, you don't know how they're going to do until they start playing. So it's not an easy thing to just say, oh, yeah, we'll just trade him. Now, the one thing that I do agree with them is now this kind of causes some 2020, hindsight 2020 stuff. Should they have still taken Jordan Morgan in the first round this year? Because now, and this doesn't even have to do with the injury, now he doesn't have a spot. Unless you're thinking Myers isn't back next year, so you slot Elton in at center, move and put Jordan Morgan as left guard, or you'd have to move Sean Ryan over to left guard and slot Morgan in at right guard. Because right now it doesn't look like he's going to get either of the tackle spots. I really don't think he could play center, as much as they like to say that he could play all five positions. And then you got the two guard spots, and the only way Elton's giving up his guard spot is if center is open. And right now, with the way Sean Ryan's playing, the only way he's giving it up is the same reason. Center's open, so Elton has to move over and Sean has to slot into his spot. So this is where the hindsight kind of comes in. It's like, okay, well, maybe the Morgan pick should have been something else. They could have traded down. They were throwing out Cooper DeJean, but I just don't think, and this is coming from an Iowa guy, I don't think Cooper would have worked in the Packers system right now, because the only reason he's having success right now is he's playing the slot.
Yeah.
And if they took him, then they wouldn't take Bullard, because they're not going to double up like that.
Yeah, or they don't take Williams later or something. So yeah, it muddles up other spots. And then the side of the 2020 they're not talking about is, like, okay, if they don't take Morgan, let's say they take Cooper, and whether he's at, like you said, it's you can have your doubts if he'd be as successful with Green Bay as he is with the Eagles and stuff. But there's a world where you don't take Morgan, and then Ryan doesn't pan out this way, kind of thing, and you're like, well, shit, we're short a guard, and you're starting like a Donovan Jennings, who had his moments in the preseason, but he's still an undrafted free agent for a reason, kind of thing and stuff. Or
But see, here's where I can argue with you on that. Because if they skip taking Morgan in the first round, and let's say it's not even Cooper DeJean that they take in the first round, it's some other corner or whatever. I can't even think who was on the board at the time that the Packers were picking. But let's say they don't even take Morgan, and okay, we'll throw Cooper out there. That means whatever spot that they had, let's say Bullard Bullard's not the pick in the second round because they're taking Cooper in the first round, so they're not going to double up on a slot corner that's possibly going to be your other safety. So what's your next pick? It's probably going to be the offensive lineman at that point. Now, it could have been Morgan. Who knows? Because I know that he was more talked about as a second round guy than a first round guy. So, I mean, we could still have that rookie offensive lineman, but he just wasn't the first round pick.
But even there, then you wonder, like, do they take more of just a safety in the second round? Like, and that's why I do think, like, you can you can try to make singular replacements and stuff, but he still had to remake the safety room. He still had to address linebacker, and how many, the butterfly effect, and how far do you want to go on it. So that's why it's like, it's unfortunate that he didn't do more this season, but also, you know the gambles that they made just didn't work out, unfortunately, and that's really all I'm going to leave it at. And it's a better draft this cycle for cornerbacks. So, you know, obviously you'd love to have answers right now, but I just cross my fingers that Jair is another week closer to returning. That, and then, you get your top cornerback, and that's why I do think that you have them trying to just get him healthy, because you're like 90% likely to make the playoffs. So at this point, it's like, just get as many of your top chip players healthy for the playoff run and the playoff push kind of thing. So that's where I'm at with that. And you see an overall improvement in the defensive side of the ball. So you you know, just and this is where the defensive line getting more pressure helps mitigate the issues at corner. The more pressure you can get, the more comfortable LaFleur, or not, that Halfley is at being aggressive in his coverage, because he's like, okay, like, these aren't the guys I want necessarily playing coverage, but if I'm getting more pressure from my front, then I can, play more aggressive in coverage, because we're getting pressure, we're attacking the quarterback, so that we can, even if, potentially we might have a guy get beat and stuff, you're forcing the quarterback into mistakes of some sort with your pass rush. So, it all goes hand in hand, but at this point, the Packers have set themselves up. Yeah, they're probably not going to win the division, but at least they've set themselves up in a position that they're going to make the playoff more likely than not. So, just I'm just here for the ride. Like you said, there's only 5 games left of the regular season, and we'll see where we land, in just over a month's time. So, Joe, you got anything else for today, or just ready for tomorrow night to or tonight to come rolling around at this point?
And I guess just ready for it to happen because we pretty much talked it to death because, it's the second game of the
And we just
season
played them a month
against
ago. Yeah.
right. So there's not much different other than some injuries happening. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
Yep. So, the usual. We thank you for joining us on this opponent preview. Please check out the website, ohanapackers.org. Support the channel by buying merch. We still have our initiatives going on, so please support by buying whatever merch you can: coffee mugs, sweaters, hats, t-shirts, the whole gamut. We've got it. Coffee. Buy the coffee just for the sake, because it's coffee. Follow the podcast on your favorite social media apps, at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram, Ohana Packers Edition on Facebook. Please follow the podcast on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like and a subscribe if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And any of your comments, we want to hear it all, so that we're producing the content you're looking for. The Packers look for their 10th win of the season, and to get within one win or one game in the loss column of the Detroit Lions. That starts on Thursday Night Football. And we kind of touched on it, but they're in the perfect scenario to just lay it all on the line this week, because you play this Thursday night game, and not only do you have the mini bye, but you have one more day, because the next game in week 15 is a Monday night game. Yes, you're traveling, but still, you have an extra 24 hours to recover from this. So go balls to the wall, pedal to the metal, whatever cliche you like to use, but go get this win if you're the Packers, get to 10 wins on the season, and put the pressure on Detroit to continue. I know they've been almost perfect this whole season to this point, but like you said, attrition is starting to hit them a little bit. Even their not injured guys are getting dinged up as well. So put the pressure on, turn the heat up, and let's see, who makes diamonds and who crumbles. So that's Iowa Joe. I might go Pack Go and Aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for OPE. Let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for OU. Know who wanna go.